I have the privilege and honor to interview Jasmit. And I'll tell you a little bit more about his story and his journey. And so tonight we're really talking about chasing greatness and achieving success. And so I'm really excited about that and all the parallels that happen with business. So now I'm gonna sit. And before I get started, this is the time that I read from a piece of paper. I try to avoid it. This is the one time because I want to give you a bit of a background on Jasmit and his story. And then when we get to the end of today's chat, you guys will have an opportunity to ask questions yourselves. So from humble beginnings, not only has Jasmit been a rising star from an early age, but he's also been a pillar of his community, demonstrating through his various charitable and community endeavors. Starting in the wrestling field at the age of 10, he was only 16 when he went to his first ever international tournament representing Team Canada and won the first gold medal at the Youth Commonwealth Championships in Singapore. Alongside this pivotal moment, he created history, becoming the first Canadian to win Outstanding Youth Wrestler. So he stood out from the crowd from the very beginning and rose to notable heights. But that wasn't it. He continued a successful wrestling career, but was also actively involved in community work by mentoring Salvation Youth, volunteering, hosting tour drives, and fundraisers. In particular, he's been heavily involved with the Abbotsford Police Department, Canuck Place Hospice, and BC Children's Hospital. Those are only to name a few because I've heard of many others since learning about Jasmit and learning more about him, but welcome.
Thanks for having me, Neesha. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. I know you have a lot going on at all times. We had a little Zoom call earlier this week, and I learned a little bit about what's happening with Jasmit personally and professionally. But let's dive right into it. You say everywhere in your bios, in your write-ups, that you were inspired by your family and particularly your brother to get into wrestling. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so I grew up in Abbotsford. So my dad always had a passion for sports.
Yeah.
He loved sports, but he lost his dad at the age of 10. So he could never pursue that passion. He always loved sports. He understood how important sports are for life and development. So he was like, I think back in the day, he used to pick up a 120-kilo rock. He was just extremely really strong. And he had a lot of like just natural gifts, but he never got a chance to use them. He always wanted his kids to be involved in sports. So then when we migrated to Canada, he always pushed us to be an active lifestyle. And he's still, till this day, he's 64 years old. He still wakes up at 4:30 a.m. every day, and we race to see who gets out of the house first, so who goes to the gym. But he's always still going. He always wanted that lifestyle, so he always pushed us. And that's kind of like where he take us to the gym. We'd watch my dad work out. We'd go in the swimming pool. We'd play fight.
Yeah.
But we were always in an active lifestyle. And then one day, random, my brother saw a wrestling program at middle school, and out of nowhere, he just came home and said, "Dad, I want to join wrestling." And my first question my dad asked him, and I'll never forget it, is my dad had one rule and principle in life. It's always, whatever you do in life, you do it properly, you don't do it. You know, he said, if this is something you want to do, like I'll help you and I'll support you. Let's do this. But in a week, it's not like, hey, Dad, I don't want to do it.
Right.
Like, is this something you really want to do? And my brother thought about it. I think he came back a couple days later and said, Dad, I really want to do this. So we started at the school, then we got involved with the club, Mary Quay Wrestling Club. My dad started taking him there for extra practices. And surely enough, I got dragged along. I did not want to be there. And I was I was really close to my mom and my grandma. And so it was just me and my brother. And I was the younger sibling, so I was always close to my mom and grandma. And I used to come home and cry every single day to my grandma that I don't want to wrestle. And she's just saying, no, like, this is important to your dad, keep going. And you know what? Like, to answer the question, that's how I started. How I fell in love with it was in this short period of time, I saw the hard work and dedication. I went from the guy that used to cry and hate the sport to someone that was getting successful in the sport of wrestling through my hard work and dedication. Yeah. And that's kind of how I fell in love with it, and that's why I still do it.
Well, it's not wild too, because you're telling your dad's story, which is an immigrant story, which we've all kind of heard and seen many times. But the fact that he wasn't able to explore it, but he was still dedicated and that commitment, right? Because that's what you guys saw, that he's still, 65, still getting up at 4:30, going out the door. It's that commitment and dedication that obviously translate into so many other avenues of your life and of your career. Because to me, wrestling at 10 is play fighting with my siblings and my cousins. It is watching WWE. It is not going to the gym and working out and being, training. This is not what I'm thinking about wrestling as a child. So you're 16 years old and you are representing Team Canada. Now, at 16, most student athletes are doing things like the BC Games, right? They are at an amateur level, they're excited, they're going with friends, they're sleeping on the floor of a gym. This is more of a social activity and a way to learn certain values and skill sets, but not necessarily a career. You're 16, you're representing Team Canada, you're away from your family. What does that feel like?
I think at a young age, through the process, I started understanding that I could take this far. Like I didn't understand it as much, but I wanted to more. I think I wanted to do something different, but I also understood. I think the sacrifices, like the parents, my brother, and I saw all the sacrifices before me, so I kind of knew I wanted to do something special. And at 16 is the first time you can make Team Canada.
Yeah.
So I knew that at 11 years old, right? So I was training towards that, like from that day on. Yeah, like I remember when I made like Team Canada, like it was. I think I've had, now I reflect on it, I've always had issues with, even when I made Team Canada, then I was already thinking about this tournament. Because I was always thinking ahead.
Yeah.
I was always thinking of where I need to go, where I need to be. And I think that mentality led me there. I think I was always, when I was in grade 5, grade 6, I already knew what I was going to do. This at 16, this was what I was going to do. So I think, but it was hard because I remember a lot of kids, a lot of my friends used to tell me that, hey, like, this is a chance to go, go with your friends, you're not gonna get this life back ever again. I still think my dad was always such a positive role model because he'd always tell me, you can't wrestle your whole life either. Like you're not gonna get this tournament ever again. But that tournament, like it was a big life changing for me because it was the first time I understood that my hard work and success, and it gave me a different limelight and people started treating me different. And I understood, hey, like if you work hard in life, and you sacrifice, there is a good result.
That's wild because I was thinking about that too. There's so many things that as a young boy, right? You're in high school, there's things going on that you're missing out on. And did you ever feel that feeling of missing out? And then now translate that forward. You're a young adult, you're training. Training is a full-time job, if not more. It affects every part of your life. Did you ever feel that feeling of missing out?
I think that feeling's short term. I think, yeah, you do for sure. But I also think I used to talk to older peers, friends that I used to train with. So at a young age, I started going up to SFU, that was the National Fitness Center at the time. So I started going there when I was in grade 9. So I got to see 3-time Olympian. I remember Hothi Garcia, one of the best wrestlers in my opinion of all time. And I got to see these guys wrestle, but I also got to pick the brain. I used to pick the brain. Yeah, you miss out, but he used to tell me, he said, all your friends and all your peers are going to be doing the exact same things in 10 years. And you know what's funny? That was exactly right. So now when I go see my friends, they're still doing the exact same thing. So nothing changed.
Yeah.
Nothing changes in that side of life. You think it does, but it doesn't. In that age, you think that there's so much more glamour out there. But the sooner you realize but the sooner you realize that, these are this age that I could become something. My hard work would give me something. And, I thank God all the time because I think he just gave me a different mindset. Because I always thought, all of us are in a room and all of us could go and sleep at a friend's house and have pizza, then why can't all of us go to the Olympics? Right? Like why do certain athletes accomplish certain things? They gotta be different. Yeah. Why do certain people have certain things? They have to be different. And I started understanding that at a young age, like, hey, like, if you want something, you can't be one with it. Whether it's hard, but if you want that, if you don't want that, then you're not going to get anything different.
So clearly from a very young age, you had a bit of a CEO entrepreneurial mindset because to be a CEO, you're looking at the long term. You're looking at the next goal, and you were 16 in the next goal, and you hit Team Canada, and now it's the next. And what are you doing to achieve next? So you shared with me earlier this week, we were in a call, and Jasmit had just gotten some news that he had a new injury. And that conversation led to the discussion around that being such a part of your career, of the sport, a professional sports athlete, period. Injuries are a part of it. This is a challenge you overcome, but also what that means emotionally, physically, the feeling of setback, how that's going to affect training, how that's going to affect, polymers, all sorts of things. Tell me a little bit about how you deal with those types of challenges that are natural with your profession, but also have such a deep impact on you on so many different levels.
I think I try to be really positive. I'm not really a negative person, and I always think like a quick story. So in 2020, I won the Canadian Olympic trials, and I had moved to Iowa State during COVID, and I was training for Olympic qualifier. And there was so much going on in the world at that time, and anxiety, like it was out of the roof, right? Like I wasn't sure if I could see my family. How, people were telling me if you get COVID, you don't know what's gonna happen. I had no clue, and I had asthma as a kid, so I was kind of freaking out. But the first thing I did is just I knew one thing though: sitting at home wasn't going to get me killed. At least if I went to Iowa, you know what? I didn't end up qualifying the weight class anyway, but I have zero regrets because I at least put my best foot forward. But the reason I share that because when I got to Iowa State, so my neck was really bad for like maybe even a year. I never thought anything of it. Just being really stubborn, I just kept waking up, going to the gym, right? I didn't think anything of it.
That hard work and dedication.
Yeah. But then I used to wake up at Iowa State and I felt like someone was like choking. Like my neck was so tight when I used to wake up. I was like, this is probably something off, right? And I went to talk to the coach. And being the States, the coach looked at me. And then that night I got my MRI, my nerve exam, like every possible exam you could get. And it was done in the day. And the next morning I woke up and he said, you gotta go to the doctors. And I was like, coach, like this practice, you're not allowed to practice. And I go there and I think, probably nothing. So my nerve from my neck to my shoulder was completely turned off. It was zero connection. They were telling me there's a chance I'll never ever turn back on. And I couldn't do a push-up. But I was overcompensating so much on my left side that I was just thinking about qualifying the weight class that I didn't even understand what was going on there. And you know what? It was just one nerve. There's obviously other nerves, so I was overcompensating. And when that arm would give out, I would just think, oh, I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking there was something going wrong there. When I found that out, the first thing I thought to myself was, how do I fix this? How do I become a smarter athlete? The doctors there told me, you know what, maybe try this next couple months, try qualifying the weight class, but that might be a career for you. But I kept pushing forward and I fixed it, and now we're sitting in 2024, and I never had a neck issue. Obviously, there's arthritis and this permanent, but then I haven't had any nerve turn off again. And same thing happened 2 weeks ago when I went in for my back. I have damaged disc. My nerve was hitting it. I pulled my back like 8 times in the last 2 months. Now I figured that out, and now, so to answer that question, I think I know what's going to be part of the sport. I've been on the national team for over 16 years now, so I know what's going to come with the game. But it's just, I always think it's God telling me, hey, be smarter. Be smarter so I can take care of my body more. And now instead of, when I was younger, I would train twice a day every day, 7 times a week sometimes. Now I can maybe shift it around a little bit. Maybe I don't need to go and run, 10K every second, third day. Or maybe I don't have to lift heavy. So now with my back, I understood that was God telling me, hey, you don't have to do heavy squats anymore. You're getting to the later part of your career, you don't have to lift heavy weights. So I just think it's a blessing in disguise because it makes me a better professional athlete. It's also making me smarter, taking care of my body. If I didn't take care of my body, if that didn't pop up, maybe I would have damaged my back so bad that it would have been permanent. So in a way, I think it's just like when you go for an oil change, right? Sometimes the light comes on, you gotta fix it, just keep going.
Okay. So here's what I'm getting at this. Tunnel vision on a goal, but pivot when you hit something, right? So it's like
I think involved. I think you always get involved in life. If you don't involve, you don't stink. So it's gonna keep evolving.
And so finding the ways to pivot and adjust to these challenges. Yep. One of the things that Jasmit said to me on the phone was that successful people overcome challenges, right? Period, overall. And you had your fair share. And so one of my favorite lines from our conversation was, you got to do what you don't want to do to get what you want. So tell me about that a little bit, because I think we've all been there. We've all done things that we didn't want to do because we had to, or we had to get somewhere, get to an outcome or achieve something. And so talking about achieving greatness, Tell me a bit about doing something you don't want to do.
I think to achieve greatness, you really got to push your wall back. Greatness is so powerful because everyone's greatness looks different. Everyone's success looks different. You can't measure success, and you can't measure greatness, in my opinion. Everyone's is going to look different. And I think it's a content, it's an inner feeling. And I think to do that though, I think you achieve that when you push that wall back. And what I mean by that is, like I said, I played soccer before wrestling, and I wanted my mom to come in the field with me. I had such bad separation anxiety. I couldn't fly alone, let alone live alone. And for the last 10 years, I've lived alone in the States. I learned so much about myself, but the most thing I'm proud of is I pushed my wall back. I can travel alone. I did. That little kid that was scared of everything is, I would say, fearless. I could never public speak in a class. When it was public speaking time, I would be looking at this. I'd be like, I'd be faking sick, and I would go home just so I didn't have to public speak. And now I don't even practice for a public speak. I just go there and do it. But those are things that were given to me. I required them.
Yeah.
So, but that goes back to my point, though. You have to do things you don't want to do to get there. And I think it's just being out of your comfort zone more and more. You start getting comfortable there. Like, the more you're there, the more you know how to operate in there. And I started doing, and I think it's a never ending. Like, you can't, it's not something in life that you can conquer. Anxiety and those things will never go away. Even now, like, I wake up at 4:30 a.m. every single day, and I do a cold plunge. I don't know what it is, right? But let me tell you guys one thing. I've done it I started January 1st. That water is cold every single morning. That temperature does not change. Sometimes you get used to something, you don't get used to this. But that's what I love about it. Every single morning, I'll get a press news. Every single morning, you don't have to do it today. You did it the other day. Why are you doing it again? But every single morning, it's like, no, I'm doing it. And I do it. But I think that's kind of the thing. You got to command your body, and you got to do the things you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Kind of goes back to the point. Like, if everyone could do it, then
100%.
what's so special about it?
You went to cold plunge, and I was going to go there. Well, it reminds me of cold plunge, right? So the thing you don't want to do, and I feel like you're right. I think professionally, you do end up having to do things you don't want to do, right? You have to build skills, whether it's public speaking, whether it's writing, whatever it might be, right? Presenting, all these types of things, and learning those skills and getting comfortable with the discomfort.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a key point, such a pivotal point, whether it be as a professional athlete, in a profession, as an owner, a business owner, CEO, a manager, you are getting comfortable with discomfort.
Yeah, and I think it's one thing I want to add is, like, I think sometimes when we see like a final product, like I always tell people, like 99.9% of people don't actually want to be the LeBron James. They think they do, but they don't. Like, who wants to travel that much, stay on the road that much, be that involved in practicing every single day, taking care of your body? Like, it's a tough job. And I think sometimes people don't understand, like, it's a lot of sacrifice and a lot of things you don't want to do that are behind the scenes, A quick story, that when I have one brother, we're really close. And when it was his first child, my nephew, I didn't get a chance to see him. I was in Michigan for a training camp. For 8 weeks, I didn't get to see him. That was one of the hardest things for me. But I was training for the Senior World Championships. And I knew, hey, if I come back today, what example am I setting for my nephew? Tomorrow will be someone's birthday, or will be someone's this, and then I'm just gonna keep coming back. But I wanted my nephew to know, I love my nephew, but I wanted him to understand that if you want something in life, there's so much you gotta give up, but it's all worth it. And quick story, I missed him being born, and 2022, on his birthday, I competed at the Commonwealth Games, and he was there. When I missed his birthday, I didn't know that was gonna happen. But God, the reason I share that is because God has a way of making things happen, and that will always be a special for us. That was his first birthday, and I was wrestling at the Commonwealth Games, but I also missed him being born. But that's why I always say, like, hard work and sacrifice, you can always get it back. You might not see it today, you might not see it tomorrow, but I promise you, you'll get it back one day.
Okay, so a little bit of a backstory from my end. Originally, Jasmit was going to do a self-guided conversation with you guys, really more of a motivational speech. And a little, not that long ago, maybe last week sometime, it was decided, let's do a fireside chat. And so I got involved, and I shared with a couple of people that I was going to be interviewing and moderating. And everyone I talked to was like, oh my God, he's so wonderful and he's so great. And we had so many common people and, you know, a big part of the community Jasmine is. And I know a lot of people in the community as well. And so many people are telling me how wonderful he is. And I'm sitting there being like, okay, well, tell me more. Tell me about this guy. And I learned very quickly that you are all about the community. And I think there's so much to be said about your professional career, your athleticism, but the community work also is such a huge part of your art and is part of your story. So tell me and tell us a little bit about your charity work.
Yeah, so so I was always so back to my dad started from my grandma, but it was always about giving back. It's always about using your platform for bigger purpose. And my dad came here, we had a successful business, but I'd always see my dad whenever anyone was in need, anything ever happened, whether the wrestling club needed new wrestling mats or anything. And there was times where we weren't even going, or we weren't involved. His kids weren't involved in the situation, but he still went and gave money. And I was just always kind of pick up on that. And that kind of was always in the back of my mind. And then as I got older, when I won in 16 is over. I didn't care about anyone else. I was so happy. I was in the paper, I was so happy. But as I got getting older and older, so I've been on the national team for 16 years. 30, turning 31 this year. I'm the first ever and only South Asian to ever be on the Canadian national team at 74 kilos. Growing up, people told me that was impossible. And I've been able to do that for 16 years. 74 kilos is the hardest weight class to do. He has the best guys in the world there. And when I was growing up, people told me that was impossible. And I've had over 23 international medals to date. The reason I share that is all that success, I started to realize I saw a lot of guys go. I've seen probably 3 different generations. The guys that compete with now weren't even born when I was on the national team. So I've seen a lot of 3 different generations of athletes come by. The one thing I learned though, a lot of people trained hard. A lot of people were sacrificing. But the thing I was learning was God gave me this platform, gave me these abilities for a bigger and better purpose. And I believe that purpose was to use my platform to better the community. And that's kind of how the community work started. And it kind of started with that. My fiance pushed me to start volunteering at Clark's Place Children's Hospice to show me a different side of the world. Because sometimes I'm so stressed about, like, I got nationals coming up, and she's like, "You're living your dream. Like, you're already winning." And that showed me a different side of the world. And then I lost my grandmother in 2020 during COVID, and I wanted to do something special with her, and I couldn't volunteer at Clark's Place anymore. So I started my own toy drive. And me and my brother, I was like, "Your toy drive." And he said, "You're probably gonna get $5,000. Like, I don't think it's worth it." We're like, "I don't know, whatever. Let's just try it." And after the first year, we got 14,000. So I didn't, I was like, "Oh wow!" And now, after 4 years, we raised over $100,000 off one Instagram post. It was zero marketing. That just showed me the love and support of the community. And after that first toy drive, just went from there.
Those numbers are incredible. And I was actually going to say, my accolades were going to be, I thought it was close to 100,000 over 3 years, but now it's been 4 years. You've done 100,000 with the toy drive, supporting first responders, pizza drives, other fundraisers. You're probably pushing, several 100,000 at this point through your work and what you put your name on. And that is just such a phenomenal impact to make. And you've been very focused in Abbotsford. You work with the Abbotsford Police Department. You're mentoring young youth, South Asian youth particularly, which is such an amazing way for you to give back to your own community. There is so much to be said about the legacy you're leaving. Everyone I spoke to, every single person.
Yeah, I think just like growing up, like I always saw athletes doing fundraising, doing things for themselves to generate money. But I always thought like it should be opposite, because I feel like we have a platform and we could generate money for the community.
Yeah.
That's the way I always thought. Like if I could use all my resources and all the people around me, like God's giving me more than enough.
Yeah.
But I want to use the connections and channels I've taken my platform to better the community. And if I can do that, and do that, so then other wrestlers, other people will follow. Because I feel like athletes, we do have a great platform. And you see it a lot in basketball and other sports where, I remember Kobe Bryant, he had one of the most successful, and so I think those are the things I strive to be. I want to be an athlete. I want to be big in the sport of wrestling. I want to show that, as athletes, we have such a bigger role in society. Because I always tell people after any competition or any big win, what's the first thing you do? You get a mic. Right? So if you can use that mic for a bigger, better purpose in yourself, what better way? Because it's hard to get on Global CBC, right? But if you can use your win for the better of the community, you all won, right?
Well, call me and we'll talk about getting you on Global CBC. But how about a round of applause just for that? Because that's a big accomplishment. I think there's so many parallels for business owners as well, because to be fair, you have a business, you get successful, you accomplish your goals, you've got more goals, but there's so much to give back to your community, whether it's in your employees, whether it's in your culture, whether it's giving back to the community that you work in. I really appreciate that even on your website, you have a recognition of the lands and the territorial lands that you wrestle on. And you say that I live, play, and wrestle on these lands. Your work has been so broad in what you're doing. It's first responders, it's South Asian youth, it's children, it's the community. You're part of the Fraser Valley Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Like, so many different ways that you're giving back. And I think that there is such a parallel with being successful and finding ways to give back to the various avenues that you've been engaged in. We had a conversation earlier about how have we not met, and all of these things, because there are so many interconnections with the community, but so much about business networking is about finding ways to support one another, to connect with one another and give back. And I think that was just such a great win for me to be involved with and be a part of this conversation. So what are parallels that you have found? I mean, we've talked about a lot of them, but you don't have let's call it a traditional 9-to-5 career. What are the parallels that you found between the work that you do at the Chamber of Commerce and other business owners and your mindset stance?
I think I think just being disciplined. I think that's obviously key. I think being disciplined, and having a goal and having short-term goals for sure, and just having a plan of how I'm going to get that, how I'm going to, and also being adaptable, because that's like I said, with my path, with my life is always throwing curveballs, but you gotta learn how to adapt. We all have plans for tomorrow, but you don't know what's going to happen. You gotta learn how to adapt. And I always tell people, and I think it always resonates, and I have businessmen have taught me the same thing, is never forget your why. That's the biggest message I always tell people. Never forget your why. Whether you're a wrestler, whether you're a business person, whoever you are, we all have a purpose. I always tell people the most two important days of your life are the day you were born, the day you found out why you were born. And those days and that day is really important. And then always remember that. When anything happens in life, doesn't matter what it is, if you know your why, you can push through anything. And just always remember your why, and that will carry you through the down and highs. And the other piece of advice would be never get too caught up in the highs or the lows. But sports, no one cares who won yesterday, who won today, right? You can win an Olympic gold medal this summer, but no one cares the next day. It's who's going to win the Olympic gold medal in LA, right? So that's how you got to adapt. And that mentality keeps you in the longevity, right? If you're just thinking about, if I'm so boosted about when I was 16 years old, I want to be wrestling today, right? You got to be really humble. You got to understand that anything happens, you just got to wake up and go back at it. So never forget the things that make you successful, and just keep doing them to have longevity.
You might have just summed up our whole conversation right there. But so I'm going to ask, because you brought it up. What was your day and what was your why?
My day, I think, was probably a couple of days, but I think when I started to realize, like, one, the platform I had, two, all these barriers I had broken. I grew up with zero South Asian representation. I never thought that, I never saw a South Asian wrestler. I never saw anything like that. So I didn't, like I said, I was the first ever 74-kilo wrestler ever in the world, South Asian. So to me, that was like, people don't think it was possible. I had coaches tell me that it wasn't possible. They told me to go heavyweight because that's where it could happen. So people told me, but I broke that, and that really showed me. And then I think my why was I had three different whys in the same thing. One is for my grandma, my grandpa, the sacrifices before me for me to be here today.
Yeah.
I understood that, and I always thought to myself, with my grandpa, never got a chance to meet my grandpa, but my grandma left in 2020. But they're always going to be with me throughout the good I do in life. I had a chance to talk about my grandma today through the good I do. So the more good I do, the more she'll always be with me. So I understood that I could always carry her legacy through my legacy. I also understood another why was the community. I truly believe in the community. We're so strong. I've been fortunate enough to travel the whole world, been over 35 countries, and I think our community is so powerful. So I understood I wanted to do more for the community, and three, for the youth. Like, I was a kid that no one believed could be a wrestler. You know, my brother was like bigger than me, he looked stronger. Everywhere I'd go, be like, oh, he's a wrestler. You know, just look at me like this guy, like he's just little. Like no one thought I was gonna become a wrestler. But I proved people wrong.
Right.
So it's for every kid that, you know, people may not believe in. I want to be that voice for them and show them that I believe in you and I'm a living example that you can do whatever you want.
Absolutely, that's such a great connection point, right? Like I think that we all get to a point where we've got goals that we want to achieve professionally and something that, okay, you know, I want to be this, whatever that might be. Like you're a kid, you're like, I want to be an astronaut, I want to accomplish it. And sure, you accomplish it and what, right? Because there's so much fulfillment in the other part of your life, right? The personal part of it. And so I think that's a phenomenal story. You talked to me about your values, integrity, dedication, hard work, sacrifice. And now you brought up sacrifice. And so I want to roll back COVID.
Yep.
You had told me that you had to travel, and you had to, if you wanted to continue in sport, you had to travel.
Yeah.
And you're in a place where your entire career is based on you being healthy and strong, and you don't know what's going to happen. You have asthma, you're like, I might have to travel, I have to do this, I don't know what's going to happen. Sacrifice in that way, sacrifice around family, sacrifice in time. You have all this time that you do with training. How do you balance all of that? How do you find that? What does sacrifice look like today, 16 years later? What does sacrifice look like when you are full-time training and trying to give back to the community? You're engaged, you know, you're making commitments to Community Today, to RBC. There's a lot of things that you're committing to. There's a lot of things that you're saying you're going to do. There's a lot of sacrifices going on. So what is your day and what does your life look like today?
Yeah, it's quite busy. So I'm up at 4:30 and try to go to sleep at 9, but it's like always something. But I think like that's just something that comes with it. Like I think like I said, I think a lot of it was God given. And I think God's blessed me with this, and I think it's my job to carry it through. Like, you know, you've seen a lot of successful athletes, but if you don't use your tools for a bigger, better purpose, are you really successful? I don't think so. You know, I don't think a gold medal makes you successful. I think helping others and helping the community with your tools makes you successful. You know, we all have different tools, and I think if we all use them together, we make a better community. So I don't really consider it sacrifice. I just think it's just using my tools for a better purpose. Sacrifice is kind of harsh because I feel like it's something you don't want to do. I love what I do every single day, so I don't consider it sacrifice.
Yeah, I mean, if you love what you do every single day, and everyone says that, right? Like, pick something that you love because you wake up and do that. It doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
Before I wrap, because I'm always going to have some last thoughts, because that's just my job. But I want to open up to the floor if you've got some questions. There's a lot to unpack, right? There's a lot to unpack professionally. There's so much that Jasmit is doing for the community, and there's all the parallels with the work that you all are doing in your businesses and how you run your businesses. So if you've got questions, I'll let you percolate on them and just shoot your hand up, and I'll turn to you. Otherwise, I'll keep going. You know, I can keep going. Yeah.
Right. First of all, great work. You're inspiring the next generation. Thank you. You're such a humble person, and that's your biggest asset from what I've seen today. You talked about your brother and kind of being his sidekick at the events. How much of a role model was he for you, or influence, I should say, was he for you?
I think, I don't know if there's any words that can explain that. I think I always say whatever me and my brother have done, we've done together. We've won together, we've lost together. Without my brother, none of this would be possible. I think not only his wisdom, he'd always encourage me, but I know that he's always there. Win or lose, we're always together as a unit. I think he's always guided me through so much, and just knowing there's someone there for you, it goes a long way. You know, just knowing you're not doing it yourself. And there's a lot of ups and downs, and he always kept me humbled and grounded. Like, man, you're wrestling. You love what you do. Like, this is like there's life after this. This is what you choose to do and what you love to do. And those are the two most important things. I'm choosing to do this, and I love to do it. So why stress, right? All those other things I'm just putting on myself. Why am I stressed? Why am I having anxiety over this? Win or lose, I choose to go on the mat, and I love to do this. So if I'm not enjoying it while I'm loving to do it, then I'm just in my head too much, right? So like he kind of grounds me like that. Then I'm like, well, he's the point. Like, I choose to be here. Like no one forced me to be career. And I love to do this. So I think it's really important. He's played an important part, but I think it's really important to have someone that's not involved in that field anymore to be around you because they really show you different aspects sometimes.
Great question. Follow-up question. Sorry, I'm hogging the floor. If you were both the same weight class, who'd win?
I think if he's even the weight class he is right now, I think the answer stays the same. So.
All right.
Thank you. You mentioned that you dropped your weight training, you lessened your weight. I'm wondering what difference that made for you towards your performance and how it affected you, and how does it, when you look back on the previous training, what do you think of that now and what do you think of the future?
I think there's different stages, and when you're a kid, when I was growing up, 20, like when we're going to the US, like a lot of things you're doing is just trying to make this guy strong. When this guy's strong, yeah, I truly believe you don't have to do too much. I'm turning 31 now, and yeah, like I still work. Like one of my hardest things to do is like sit at home. Like that's like my biggest like weakness. If anything, I overtrain. That's what people always tell me. My coaches gotta like, yo, stop. But like one thing I've learned though, as you get older, if I knew this at a younger age, I think I'd be way better. But I think that's life, right? You learn things as you go. This is just stronger now, and I understand that when I shake hands, doesn't matter what I've done, I'm gonna leave it all out there. But sometimes when you're younger, you've done way more work. But this guy's not ready, so you still don't leave it all out there. So you go home with some of the work left still. But now when I compete, I leave it all on the mat. So I think I'm a better wrestler, and yeah, and then I'm involved, and yeah. So now I think it's just more about in your 30s. It's more about just having your body healthy. And when you're a kid, your body's always healthy, right? So you don't know anything. But as you get older, you understand that having a healthy body is really hard.
You've got all the tools in place. It's now about strategy, right? You're
Yeah.
being strategic with your planning, and feel like again, this is that parallel of understanding. Like I have my full roster of tools.
Yeah, now just go execute. And when you're younger, you're trying to build that toolbox.
I feel like, so I heard this once and it stuck with me. It's that the biggest battle you'll ever fight is in the 6 inches between your ears.
That's something I always say.
And I think it stuck with me so much after I heard it. And just a friend, there was this phone conversation that's always hit with me because that is the biggest battle, and whether it's professionally, personally, etc. You know, sport, you've got an opponent in front of you. You can allow yourself to be psyched out. You can feel all that, or you can stay strong and say, I know what I'm doing. And I feel like this goes so much into us staying in our own lane, right? You've got a goal, you're trying to accomplish something, staying in your lane and knowing that you've done the best you can.
Yeah, and I think that's always the biggest, hardest competitor I face every single day is myself. And then, yeah, and I think after that, like it's easy. Yeah. Right? Competing against someone else is not as hard, but like the hardest competitor is always going to be the person you meet. Now we thought, if you're better than that person every single day, you're successful.
Absolutely. Your competition is with yourself. If you were better than you were yesterday, you want to quit.
Exactly.
Would you say that your brother and or your dad were your first mentors? And what is what do you think about mentorship?
I think it's huge. I think my dad will forever be my mentor. I think it's huge. I think my dad came to Canada, never spoke any English. He didn't know anything. We have a successful nursery now. We're one of the biggest wholesalers in Canada. He never knew how to grow a plant, right? So he can make a live plant now. We became one of the biggest wholesalers in Canada. And he never knew it until like 22. He didn't even know what it was. And he can come into a country and do that and become that and learn English and do all that. Then I can do this, right? I can become the first ever South Asian wrestler at 74 kilos. I can do that. So I saw that though. I saw my dad go into uncharted territory and become successful. So that gave me confidence. And I look back at it now as I get older. Like I really had a really good mentor. Like sometimes you don't reflect on it when you're a kid, but now I saw my dad doing that. So whenever I go to uncharted territory, I'm like, I've seen it. I've seen what it took, and I've seen what it took. And my dad was how this did. Like I said, he's 4:30. He works out. He goes to work still, and he's still so involved. So I understood longevity too. Like success isn't, you just don't get it and keep it. It's something you got to work on every single day. You keep it forever.
Success, the right for success to do every single day, right? Yeah, clearly we've heard some of the same ones. I think, yeah.
So, just another question. talking about, gone through a couple of injuries, and it's always something to overcome. It's always getting the next level after that. And at the end of the day, you're 31 now, you're still competing, and there's going to be a transition. That you can call it, that's the next injury, that's the next setback. In talking about, mental health and, using that point of your brain, your mentality, what do you think that you could use as something you've gained as an athlete into going forward into your next phase of your life when you do have to make that transition? Because at some point, everybody has to make a change from being the young kid, the athlete, or whatever they are, into the next phase of your life. So where do you see yourself going with that?
Yeah, I think just finding your passions. And I always think like, for me, it was always strong, community, my why. So that's why community stuff started giving me that same thrill, helping others. That was giving me that same kind of feeling. Like I like to see, my like hard work, I'm helping these people. So that's when I started doing more community things. And, with my nursery now, that's my dad's legacy. That's really important to me. So that's my another passion. So I think I'm ready to tapping into my other passions. And I understand I can't wrestle forever, but I understand I don't think it's wrestling anymore. It's that same feeling, and I'm starting to get into other spots already. So that's
And now golf. As we talk about mentorship when you had it, where do you see yourself going with that so you can give that back to the community as a mentor, someone who's gone through these both hardships, you've gone through so much work that you've put in. How do you find that you can give that back to the youth going forward in the future?
Yeah, so I do that. Like I've been doing that through wrestling my whole career because that was just like someone helped me, I'm gonna help someone. So I actually mentor a lot of youth right now as well at a wrestling club. I just had one kid just win nationals. He was 16 years old. So I mentor a lot, but my biggest thing was, so I'm doing a lot of mentoring at a wrestling club right now with South Asian females. Because when I grew up, there was no South Asian females allowed to wrestle. So maybe I'm always looking for the underdog story. I don't know, right? But I've been trying to do stuff because I was the underdog. So now I'm trying to mentor more South Asian females. And I want to break more barriers. I'm all about breaking barriers, and I want to do that. And I want to one day, hopefully, I know not hopefully, one day I know there will be a South Asian female in the national team. She'll go to the Olympics, and that's my dream. But that's what I want to do because I want to break another barrier.
Oh, I thought. I think there's a question back. Yes.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So riffing on the question about mentorship. So whether it's actually our son, who we're trying very hard to raise well, all the way through to teams that I coach at work, how do you get people to appreciate that they have more potential than they realize?
First and foremost, walk the walk, talk the talk. I think you are the biggest role model for them at times. Whenever I try to mentor someone, I always first lead by example, and I show them every single time. Sometimes I do tasks with them and show them how I do it, and just kind of get to rub them off. And then I start giving self-talk is so important. I've seen people, and I've seen it like that's a good thing about my sport. I've been in travel the world, and some countries, they're so good at positive talking. Like that guy might not be the best wrestler, but they've built him up to think he's the best thing in the world. And he's not. But he will keep going because he thinks that in the back of his mind. And I always tell people, for example, if I see a US wrestler, I just think he's good. Because that's just the way it is. That's just what people think. US is a strong country, they're the best in the world. And US wrestlers just think they're good. Well, they don't respect anything. They just think we're going to dominate because that's just the culture. So I think to answer that question is self-talk and building that culture, and making that person understand how, showing them, show them things and like, wow, that's really impressive. And that goes a long way. Doesn't matter who you are, you all like compliments. Doesn't matter how old you are, who you are, you gotta nice shoes. Shoes are pretty nice. Everyone loves compliments. And at 16 years old, when my teacher started saying, hey, champ, how's it going? That's what led me to be here today, right? And those compliments fed off. If no one acknowledged them, maybe I wouldn't be sitting here today, right? So everyone loves to feel good. It doesn't matter who you are. And I think that goes a long way.
Your website is a very long list of accomplishments, like 30 plus, I counted. If you had to pick one of those, that was most meaningful to you.
I conquered that 10-year-old kid. Right? There's no price on that.
And
There's
that's
no,
not on the website.
yeah, there's no medal and there's no price on that. Right? I went above what I ever thought I could dream. I always tell people I'm living my dreams. So what's better than that, right?
And then I'm assuming, as I was gonna ask you, what's the personal highlight, but that kind of sounds like it's the same.
Yeah, I think it's the same. I think living my dreams. You know, if I was at 10 years old, when you told him he'd be sitting here today, he would have, there's no way. Right? So
Isn't it lovely to see that all these people are living in your dream right now? Like, this is your dream, right? What's next for you?
I want to wrestle 4 more years. No pressure, but I want to see my kids watch me wrestle the 2028 Olympic Games.
No pressure.
No pressure. I always had a dream of mine that I want my kids to see the hard work and dedication I put into the sport of wrestling. I don't want them to hear about it. So however long that takes, I will keep wrestling until I have kids.
No pressure to you.
And then I think I want to get more involved in my family's company. I want to carry my dad's legacy. And yeah, I want to do something for the community. I want to leave a bigger footprint in the sport of wrestling, and I want to challenge that through the community. And I want to do more community initiatives. I want to, even if I can help one kid, that's more than enough. And I just want to give kids an opportunity, whether it's sports or anything, because wrestling changed my life forever. Like I had all this anxiety, everything. So it changed my life. I want to give kids the opportunity, but most importantly, I just want to help out and give the youth something else. You know, give other avenues, and then yeah, I think just be there whenever the community needs me.
I will say on behalf of the community, you know, apparently I'm the spokesperson now, but I will say that from everything I've heard, you've already helped at least one, and you've done such incredible work that you are already walking that walk. And so congratulations to that. I think it's really important at the end of a conversation like this to kind of like find those parallels and bring it back. And I think there's just so many great things that we took from today. Obviously the hard work and dedication, that has clearly been a theme of your life, of your upbringing, of the way that you have come to this sport and attacked it. But I really see that you come into this with a CEO, an entrepreneurial mindset. You have a goal, you're focused on it, you're looking at your body and your mind as the tools and your, you know, as your employees, as whatever you want to call them, and having them work together and accomplishing that goal. Really also recognizing that we're never in one spot for that long, right? Whether it's in business, you accomplish this and the times change, right? There's a new KPI, there's a new goal, there's a new thing we're trying to accomplish. The world changes, pandemics, life, children, so many things change. And how do we pivot to connect to that, the adaptability? I really think that you've also kind of touched back on the recognition of what is success. And it's something I personally said, to me, success is happiness, right? And you talked about being content, and I think that those can often be one and the same. I don't think happiness means that you walk around all the time and it's like rainbows and you know, sparkles and sprinkles and all the things. But you recognize that being content in where you are and that success looks very different for different people. I also love that you talked about breaking barriers, because I think business is often about breaking barriers. The best businesses, the most successful businesses are doing something different. They're not following the herd. They're not one of the sheep. They're doing something aside. There are so many parallels in your career, and I will say this: no matter what you do, you will be successful, because the qualities and the values that you have talked about and that you clearly live by are ones that do determine success in all aspects. So that's incredible. I will say that clearly the legacy here is that your children will carry your legacy, as you said, girl or boy, right? Yeah. Girl or boy is continuing the legacy. You are continuing your dad's legacy. Legacy is a very big part of your story. It continues to come up. So maybe we leave on that note, legacy and what that means to you and how that translates to business and business owners and everyone. But legacy is it's such a heavy word.
Yeah, I think one thing, I think the biggest thing is like cars, houses, you know, clothes, all these materialistic things that people, sometimes we all want, they're all fake. right? No one cares, like, you buy a brand new car today, doesn't matter how expensive it is, in 10 years, it's not brand new anymore. It's not worth much, right? But your name is something that's gonna be here forever. And when I was growing up, like I used to just look at, like, I went to Rick Hansen Secondary. Who's Rick Hansen, right? Who's Terry Fox? They're ordinary people. They ate the same as us, they look the same as us. If they can do it, why can't I do it? Why can't we do it? Right? What's stopping us? They're not superhuman. They're all just like us. They went through every stage of life just like us. Right? They were born, they crawled, they slowly started walking. Right? So why can't we do, like, why can't I do? Why can't one of you do that? We all can do that.
Absolutely.
Right? So that was kind of, and then I think legacy it's something to remember, once you're gone. Like I have so much respect for, Terry Fox, someone I admire so much, and I have so much respect for Kobe Bryant. My kids will know who Kobe Bryant is. Terry Fox was, and I think that is so cool, right? Like you're not no longer here, but people still talk about you. To me, that's the coolest thing in the world. I have wrestlers that, like, I used to go places and they'd be like, "Oh, you're from Canada, him." I was like, "Yeah," and I thought that was so cool that you can travel the world and people still know you, and that's so cool to me. Like legacy is like coolest thing to me, and it leaves your imprint on the world, and no one can ever take that away from you. That's awesome.
Okay. I will say at the young age of 31, people will know your name.
30.
30, yes, you're 31, yeah, 30. I looked at Jasmit's profile and I realized that he is a year younger than my baby brother, and I was like, okay, well, at the very young age of 30, with everything you've accomplished, with obviously the tools that you have, the dedication that you have, people will know your name. Everyone here will never forget your name. I will never forget your name. We are so honored and grateful for you to take out the time today. I am going to ask once again if anyone has any last questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. This was wonderful. I think that we got such great value and insights and nuggets of wisdom from you tonight. So I appreciate your time. Everyone, if you could join me one last time and give me a round of applause.